Mark Anderson, Mark Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel, and Elon Musk.
Imagine you've woken up refreshed. Boy, that would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be really nice. Anyway, you've woken up refreshed and you say good morning to your partner and your dog, and you're just lounging in bed, chilling before your day really starts. You reach for your phone to check in. What's in the family chat? Oh, did your friends make it home after game night last night? How did yesterday's post do? What's today's latest trend? Who's canceled? What did the president say now? Should you share that funny dinosaur meme? Does anyone care what you're thinking about? Should you take down the post? It didn't have very much engagement. Maybe it isn't interesting. That opinion post did get a lot more attention, though. Maybe you should do that again. Whew. Whether you want to believe it or not, social media impacts you. It impacts what you think about, tells you what to be concerned about, gives you an indication of how well liked you are, and it plays a part in shaping your wants and needs. Now, I think the jury is out on whether or not this was an intentional part of it all when it started, but it certainly is now. Now, today, social media is a form of social control. And that's what I'm talking about today on EnvironMental with Dandelion. If this is your first time tuning in, hi, hello, I'm Ob, your host and the chief cultivator here at Dandelion. My team and I are the folks behind the curtain for the brands whose sustainability stories actually make a difference in the world. And you? Oh, yes, you. You're the eco-curious baddie who's been called an alarmist hippie your whole life, and now that the world is literally burning, the I told you so doesn't feel like the flex we thought it would. As a reminder, if you want to dive deeper into any of the information I share in my episodes, you can always find the link in my show notes. Now, before we start naming names, I am obligated to remind you that subscribing, liking, and commenting go a very long way for me as a small creator, especially since the topics I cover on this podcast are not popular and, in fact, have been called the enemy of the techno-optimist. I'm not making that up. We're going to talk about it later today in this episode. So, if you're into sticking it to the man in any sense of that word, please subscribe to the channel. Honestly, all jokes aside, thank you so much. It helps a lot. This is part 2 of the Shadow Architect series, where I'm answering the question, who's doing this? Who is stopping the progress to a more sustainable future? Is it intentional fuckery, or is it a byproduct of inertia? Part 1 was about the gatekeepers, the people who are keeping the destruction of our planet legal. I covered the US system there because I have 2 degrees focused on the US systems and government. My degrees are in criminal justice, and I have an interdisciplinary degree focused on governance, advocacy, and sociology more broadly. So the US government is kind of my bag. It is by no means relegated there. You know what? Hey, I am a podcaster with a criminal justice degree, so maybe if Cash Money Patel needs replacing, I can slot in. Just kidding. I'm not qualified for that job, and neither is he. Watch the last episode if you want to learn more about that. Another reminder here is that my intention with this series is not to name every single person involved. That is a long list, but it's to give you concrete examples of how this works in different sectors and ask that you start looking for these patterns in your thinking or in your industry so that we can call attention to how our decisions are shaped personally and in groups so that we can actually start shifting this paradigm for the better, for a more sustainable future. In future episodes, we're going to cover everything from military industrial complex and influencers to religion and entertainment. I want to point the fingers. I want to name the names because there are people behind these industries, and we should know who they are so we know who not to follow, who not to believe in. Today, Today, we're talking about the architects, the people who build the unsustainable systems that we are forced to use. And yes, I'm using the word forced here lightly. In today's society, these people are known as the technocrats. I'm going to call them that. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Having lived and dated in the Bay Area, the tech bro mecca, in case you didn't know, for many years, I am telling you, this episode has been very triggering to write, research, to record. Not only does it take me back to the worst, most offensive conversations I've ever had, it showed me where that influence came from and how intentional the attitude towards women, equality, sustainability, Black Lives Matter, you name it. It showed me how intentional that attitude is. In fact, for reading for this episode, I came across Foucault's Discipline and Punishment, which is a picture of modern disciplinary society with three intermingling techniques for control: hierarchical observation, normalizing judgment, and the examination. This type of societal control is based on Jeremy Bentham's model for a literal prison. It's called a panopticon, which is basically how prisons are built now, where there's a guard tower in the center that looks over the common area, and then all the cell doors face inward so that if a guard wanted to, they can see everyone in all the spaces. Since inmates always can be watched, but never know whether they are being watched, there becomes a natural internal monitoring system, like within the inmates, and they start to behave as if they are always being watched. Foucault took this from inside the institution and applied the same thinking to society, saying that it could work with any system of power. And that is what we're seeing with social media, right? If you post something and it doesn't get attention, you are less likely to post the same way again. I kind of make my whole living on this, right? If you post something and your feed blows up, good or bad, you've cracked an engagement spiral and you'll tend to follow down that path again. That's where we're normalizing judgment and the examination. The hierarchical observation part of this, well, that is done by the technocrats, the meta people. They're not watching everything. They can't watch everything, but they might be. So be careful. You know, we're going to go further into this later, but ask yourself, what happens when they start weighing that engagement differently? When they put a finger on the scale and tip attention and engagement towards the angry face. And I hear you right now. Like, I hear you being like, this sounds like you're about to go into a crazy conspiracy spiral. Are we going to have a crash out? They're not doing that. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. And it's impacting the vibe of the entire world. Now, I want to put a disclaimer here because I'm part of all of these systems. I'm obviously sharing this information with you using these systems because it's what we have. That doesn't mean that this isn't important to know, right? Okay, but how did we get here? Who pulled these strings of influence? Who's building this infrastructure that we are in? So originally, I really wanted to start this podcast with Zuckerberg and Meta because that's where we are today. That's what I'm interested in because it's in current events. It's also a huge part of my work. But there was an earlier generation to cover first so that we are all on the same page. Honestly, I honestly felt like a red string maven connecting dots in the research page here. It's so overwhelming. Really, like, I got woofed. So I decided to write this as kind of a timeline, and it starts in the mid 90s because what we're seeing now is 30 years in the making. So let's start with Peter Thiel. His life is actually pretty impressive, so I'd give him some flowers there, but he'd just crush them in the palm of his hand because they don't matter, and neither do I to this guy. So let's set the stage. He was born in Germany and he moved to South Africa when his father got a job in gem mining. No, we're not talking about Musk. The South African town he was raised in was very pro-German nationalist movement. So let's just say this was one of the very few safe harbors for Nazis post-World War II. He was raised on apartheid and the dreams of shaping the world how he wanted it. Then he moved to the Bay Area and went to Stanford, which was a hotbed for the hippie movement. Can you imagine the culture shock of German nationalist to Bay Area vibe living? Kinda can't. Whoa. There he studied philosophy and started the Stanford Review, which is still active today with the mission to present alternative views on a wide range of issues, create a forum for rational debate on campus, and challenge those who disagree to participate. The Stanford Review was created as a forum to be contrarian to the Bay Area culture. Now, I can't say that this is nefarious, not yet, because I'm pro critical thinking and moral debate, right? I don't agree with Peter Thiel's point of view, which is anti-social progress, racially motivated, and anti-multicultural, even in the earliest stage. Where I think his story gets interesting is in the dot-com boom. Thiel, along with several other people he met through the Stanford Review, started PayPal. Now, there's a whole wild backstory here, but for brevity, I'll cliff notes it for you. But for the long version, go look up the PayPal wars. So what matters here is that PayPal and another company, X, became direct competitors. X was owned by none other than Elon Musk. Yes, the X today was not the first X. I'm going to park Musk here, actually, because obviously he'll be back, but he went heads down for a while for this part. Anyway, X and PayPal decided that they needed to merge in order to grow to where they wanted to be. And Thiel et al. Literally took over the company from Musk while he was on a plane to his honeymoon, thus ending X number one. Then, in 2002, eBay bought PayPal for $1.5 billion, and the PayPal Mafia was born. This has names that you may or may not know, like Chad Hurley, David Sachs, Reid Hoffman. There's like 20 of them. Okay, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, there's 20 of these dudes. All of the original founders left after the purchase, but they all ended up founding and funding the largest and biggest names in tech today. This is like YouTube, LinkedIn, Tesla, Lyft, Spotify, OpenAI, Facebook, SpaceX, Airbnb, Wise, Palantir, Reddit, Tumblr, blah, 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 blah. This list literally goes on forever. And if you want to investigate any of this stuff, I've linked Fleximize in the resources article. It has this like really cool thing. It's very cool. But while most of these technocrats went on to found direct-to-consumer companies, Thiel takes a different approach. He starts VCs where he can invest in and have influence on the big tech companies. I hear you going like, we haven't talked about sustainability in this episode, because this series is about influence and where that influence comes from. In this case, it is deep-seated, and sustainability doesn't actually come into play until later, but I think it starts here because Peter Thiel started a newspaper that serves the contrarian opinion in the Bay Area of California. And that body of work is used as a tech bro farm to this day. That means that from the beginning, the folks that run the largest, most lucrative industry in the world that influence our culture and the way we consume have been at odds with the sustainable, alarmist, hippie, eco-curious movement from the jump. Peter Thiel is a very smart man. His philosophy degree gives him an edge into how people think and the moral questions they ask. From the beginning, this guy has been aiming for power and control for himself and people like him. German nationalist movement. In 2003, Thiel started Palantir with his buddies Alex Karp, Stephen Cohen, Joe Lonsdale, and Nathan Gettings. We really only hear about Karp anymore. It's always been focused on data integration and analysis. And in fact, most small businesses today use some version of this for things like cold emails, data scraping. I think that's why he was the first investor in Facebook, and why he sits on the board today. He knew the best way to collect data on the individual. In 2004, Thiel invested in Facebook. And moreover, he invested in a young Harvard student who stole the concept for a social media platform and then sabotaged his co-founder so that he would be the main owner with the most decision-making power. Didn't make that up in his biography. Okay. Do we think Thiel saw a bit of himself in Zuckerberg? Musk PayPal takeover, Facebook takeover? Yeah, we do. Now, you and I, we don't know the conversations that were had in those back rooms, but I can tell you that at this point, Thiel and Zuck had already shown their aptitude for manipulation. This is where I think it started to become clear, like really clear, that social media, Facebook at that point, could be used as way more than just a tool to connect with friends. It can steer people and culture. It can be a digital panopticon. And you know what? We all played right into it. Like, do you remember early Facebook? It was like, I had food today. Like, anyway. In the 2008-2010 era of Facebook, like when it jumped from college only to like everybody's allowed, another important name pops up, Mark Andreessen. He saw the potential and he invested millions into Facebook. And not only that, he convinced Zuckerberg to never sell. I think this is because they saw the limitless potential for power here. Andreessen is also going to come back into this later, but know that he's in the background with Thiel, like making deals, invested in tech, and they're both just getting richer than any human oughta should be, okay? It's also around this time where their colors really start to show. Because remember, around this time, Obama became president, and there's a blue wave. Oh, God, that was so refreshing. It was refreshing then. But like, we were coming off of like, what, George W? Like, remember, I can't believe I would ever miss George W. Bush, but like, please. Anyway, there was a blue wave. It's at this time that Thiel pens The Education of a Libertarian, and this is 2009, where he laments that democracy and capitalism cannot coexist, saying, quote, "Since 1920, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries and the extension of the franchise to women, two constituencies that are notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy into an oxymoron." Welfare and women make democracy and capitalism not work well together, is what he's saying. In this same article, he decides that he's going to go all in on protecting capitalism from the same downfall. He talks about building cyberspace, outspace, and in seasteading, like water world, basically. He says, quote, "The fate of our world may depend on the effort of a single person who builds and propagates the machinery of freedom that makes worlds safe for capitalism." Listen, I'm going to read that to you again, so that all you folks who are cleaning or whatever ADHD side quest you're on right now, so that you can tune back in. The fate of our world may depend on the effort of a single person who builds or propagates the machinery of freedom that makes the world safe for capitalism. A world safe for capitalism, safe from women, democracy, and welfare, at least. Yo, this is 2009. It was 17 years ago. And he's talking about himself, and he's talking about his power and his money, and like, look where we are in the world. Look around you. Or like, look at the news. Around this time, he also starts being openly into dark enlightenment and Nick Land, who is another philosopher known as the father of accelerationism. He's going to come back into this later too. And here the picture actually gets quite a bit clearer. Because this guy is in control of our social panopticon. But you really don't have to take my word for it, though, because Cambridge Analytica literally came out and gave us the blueprints for how they won the 2026 election for Trump using intensive survey research, data modeling, and performance optimizing algorithms to target more than 10,000 different ads to different audiences in the months leading up to the election. Do you remember those like little surveys that were like, what kind of dog are you? Or which brat doll are you? Yeah, those surveys. And the data from sites like Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter gave them all the information they needed as a proof of concept to not just shape an election, but to win an election in a massive upset. Oh, but don't worry. Don't worry about that, because the government charged Facebook $5 billion and just kind of like let them keep on carrying on. But do you think Facebook stopped there? No, because remember, that was proof of concept. Because while Zuckerberg said,
some people say that the problem is that social networks are polarizing us, but that's not at all clear from the evidence or research.
what he actually meant is social media is not a large driver of polarization until we fuck with it. There have been reports from within Facebook that they tested what happens when that little angry face is weighed 5 more times than that OG thumbs up. You know what happens? Flame wars. Engagement goes up because people are pissed off. I call that polarization, baby. Okay, I do. And here's where I'm going to talk about sustainability. All right. And this is my personal story. I work in marketing and storytelling for brands who want to do things more sustainably. And I can tell you that at least since 2018, Facebook and now Meta has not allowed brands to talk about sustainability in ads. Like, you cannot use their words on imagery. You cannot use them in the copy. You cannot talk about sustainability or really anything that could be considered anti-capitalist ever. I also I can't prove this part because they say shadow banning isn't real. But I've seen for years creators on platforms who talk about sustainability just don't get the visibility of other creators unless everyday users, the people, push the message forward, which is why I talk about people power all the time. This is to the point now where brands and creators, they start using other words with smaller signals that are harder to pick up on. It washes out their brand voice, makes it harder to stand on their mission because they can't use the words they typically use, which ultimately makes social media less impactful for sustainability focused businesses altogether, all while fast fashion, cheap plastic, shitty knockoffs, they run rampant on Facebook through ads. And why? Well, I can tell you why. They say that sustainability is too political of a topic. Literally, I have had clients who have had their accounts suspended because their topics are too political when all they really want to do is sell a sustainable product or service, and they want to use their real brand voice. Okay, but yeah, you heard me right. Facebook is literally okay with being used to win a presidential election, but not to promote sustainability because of politics. And whose politics is that? Peter Thiel and the Technocrats. Because sustainability has a direct correlation with a paradigm shift towards spending less, repairing things before buying once and buying better, democracy, women in charge, putting people ahead of profits, i.e., anti-capitalism.
Take a quick breather from the shadow architects, because if you're a founder running an impact brand right now, 2026 is kicking your ass. That's because sustainable business owners are relying on standard ad networks to grow. And that means you are literally feeding the same tech monopolies we're talking about right now. You're pouring money into an algorithm that hates you. So I think it's time to build an alternative infrastructure. You already know that Dandelion Branding specializes in growing businesses that the world actually needs right now, because I tell you all the time. But doing great work isn't enough if you're staying silent or just speaking inside of the sustainability box the algorithm puts you in. This summer, Dandelion Branding is dropping the Unhushable Network. It is a conscious ecosystem connecting verified impact brands with authentic content creators. We're bypassing the corporate middleman, baby, to create partnerships built on an absolute infrastructure of trust. When I say that, I actually mean it's me. I am literally out here reaching out to creators that I see working in integrity directly. It's me with my email address or Instagram. It's not a bot. It's not AI. I am asking them or their reps to send over their media kit so I can get them listed so that you can have direct access to building long-term partnerships that actually grow your influence. And why am I doing it? Because I think the most powerful way to disrupt the system is to scale an alternative system. And I think it's time for mission-driven brands to step it up. The waitlist for Unhushable Network is open right now. Go to the show notes, join the Unhushable Network waitlist, and you'll get all the information as we get closer to launch time.
I promise I'm not making this up. Between 2009's like protect capitalism diatribe from Thiel, the 2016 election of a world-known, like kind of shitty businessman, not kind, like very shitty businessman, and the 2023 techno-optimist manifesto penned by Mark Andreessen, this is clear. In case you don't know, the techno-optimist is a long, rambling look into the mind and the values of this type of human being. Anderson is a major proponent of that Landian accelerationism that we talked about earlier. This is like pushing capitalism as far and as fast as it can go so we can replace it with a post-human intelligence. It is very anti-woke, alt-right conservatism. It didn't start that way, but it is now. This is the same stuff we're seeing in the Stanford Review, but like on the 2020s drama steroids. He's even named Nick Land as a patron saint of techno-optimism. Yeah, I know it. In this manifesto, which unfortunately I do think you should read because it's very long, and I'm gonna cherry pick it here because it's all I've got time for. Andreessen starts with, "We are being lied to. We are being lied." It's very dramatic. He's setting the stage for you to buy into this philosophy around technology, which is, quote, "the glory of human ambition and achievement, the spearhead of progress, and the realization of our potential." Cute. Okay, you know. He believes that the planet is underpopulated, that the free market is the only way to lift people out of poverty, and that, quote, "the techno-capital machine is an engine of perpetual material creation, growth, and abundance." He thinks that artificial and augmented intelligence are the universal problem solvers, and they will allow us to grow with no upper bound. No upper bound. He also shares the values of the techno-optimist. Here's a few quotes. "We believe in ambition, aggression, persistence, relentlessness, strength. We believe," I don't know why I have to do this voice, but this is what it feels like. "We believe in embracing variance, in increasing interestingness. We believe in competition because we believe in evolution. We believe in evolution because we believe in life. We believe in the truth." It goes on. "We believe," it's like a real thing. "We believe rich is better than poor, cheap is better than expensive, abundant is better than scarce. We believe in making everyone rich, everything cheap, and everything abundant." Uh-huh. is real. This is what it says. And it says a lot of things, okay? But there's also a section called the enemy. It's also long. It's very interesting, but this is how it starts. We have enemies. Our enemies are not bad people, but rather bad ideas. I just like can't not do the voice. It's like it's like performative philosophy. So I'm just gonna stick with it. Our present society has been subjected to mass demoralization campaign for 6 decades against technology and against life, under varying names like existential risk, sustainability, ESG, sustainable development goals, social responsibility, stakeholder capitalism, precautionary principle, trust and safety, tech ethics, risk management, degrowth, the limits of growth. That's the beginning of the enemies, right? So I'm really not making this up. This isn't the ramblings of some random dude. This is Mark Andreessen. He's the inventor of the first web browser. He's a tech billionaire on the board of Meta, and he's an advisor to the Trump administration. He is one of the most well-known investors in Silicon Valley, and his portfolio, honestly, is damn impressive. His company has their fingers in everything you know: Slack, Asana, Meta, Wise, Airbnb, Lyft, SpaceX, Reddit, and everything you don't know, which all have these like sci-fi names that I would like if it wasn't like this. Asimov, a human genetic design and bioengineering company; Genesis, AI operating system for small molecule drug discovery; Third Arc Bio, more bioengineering; Human AP, health data infrastructure platform that aggregates patient data; and Tessera, which is a lot of stuff focused on achieving singularity, basically. This is this guy's manifesto. So when I'm here and I'm talking to you about how our social structures are set up to tank sustainability, I'm not kidding. It's built into the foundation of our communication because this guy has influence and really deep pockets, like really deep pockets. And the agenda here is still clear: protect capitalism at all cost. And like, honestly, based on all of the bioengineering stuff, live forever to enjoy it. How are they doing this? It's time to talk about Palantir, Doge, and Musk's infiltration of the government. Okay, now I'm actually going to cover the military-industrial complex in part 3 of the Shadow Architects series, so this will likely come back up. Like I said way back however many minutes ago, Peter Thiel started Palantir in 2003. That means it's been flying under the radar for more than 20 years, collecting data and being used by the government as a data mining and profile tool. Do I think Thiel invested in Facebook because the best way to collect data on people is to have them hand it over to you? Yes, of course, that's the best way. I think that's a brilliant move if you want to protect capitalism and replace democracy with an unseen social control mechanism, because Thiel knows something important. It's the same thing that Musk knows, that Trump knows, that Epstein knew. All these people knew him too. Nothing is worth more than information. And Palantir is a privately owned company that rents out service to government entities like the CIA, police stations, and oh yeah, ICE. This is like all of your data. I don't know where the preppers are here, that they're like into this guy and into these people, but I mean all of this. All of this. Everything in this box where you're watching me from or listening, if you're listening on Spotify, everything you've ever done digitally, and looking into the investments from Andreessen, I also think that potentially all of your health information too, all of it. It is known and aggregated in Palantir, and they use that information to find terrorists. And to, also be terrorists on the street, blackbagging people and carting them off to literal warehouses Do you think I'm on a list? Yes, me too. I'm probably on a list. I'm not sorry. So I'm telling you right now that I am not going anywhere for a while. I don't have plans to do anything to myself, just so you know. Okay? Okay. And while we're here, I'm just going to tell you that JD Vance is bought, paid for, and promoted by Peter Thiel, because if you can't control the main guy because he's crazy, control the vice president. Look it up. Okay. I said we would come full circle back to Musk, and here we are, because he's the guy that opened the door for the PALANTIR and ICE ship. There is a fantastic interview on Jacobin from Doug Henwood interviewing Ben Tarnoff and Quinn Slobodian about their book Muskism. Sorry to butcher all these names. This interview is fantastic insight into the radical change we've seen in Musk over the past few years. So after the original X thing, where Thiel like pushed him out of PayPal, Musk had this I'll show you vibe. He went and he started Tesla and SpaceX. He invested in a ton of tech. He started OpenAI with Sam Altman, and he started Neuralink, both as safeguards against this intelligent AI apocalypse he saw coming on. Then he bought Twitter and renamed it X. The renaming this X 2.0 tells me that he never got over that original thing. And while he is a technocrat, Musk isn't taking the same approach as Thiel, whose philosophy is capitalism at all costs. It kind of is. Musk is I need to be a part of the biggest, most important things. So he's not actually dismantling democracy, he's using it to his benefit. And you can see that because he inserted himself into the government last year as the head of Doge, which most people would definitely not say was any level of success. But I actually really like this quote from that Muskism interview. If you look at what the Doge folks were doing when they went from agency to agency, one of the main themes was their effort to integrate disparate data sources, both within and across agencies, into common repositories. When you integrate data in such a way, it becomes queryable in new ways, and it becomes possible to interface with automated systems in new ways. Palantir was probably the single biggest beneficiary of Doge in terms of the number of contracts it managed to acquire. Now, despite their falling out, Musk and Palantir founder Thiel have been allies for 30 years. They made each other rich as hell. Musk has XAI, which plugs directly into Palantir. And honey, what does this have to do with sustainability? I know. It feels like I'm having a fever dream, and where's the point here? Do you understand the computing power and rat race this has caused? To do this level of surveillance, we need data centers. And if you watch the last episode or any of them before, you'll see that the whole of the US government is paving their way for more data centers. Not only that, but Sam Altman and OpenAI came out with this whole compute infrastructure plan with promises of this huge computing power, which means basically huge energy bills. And in case you missed it, the whole focus on the AI power infrastructure is centered around extractive, fossil fuel burning, water resource using, accelerationist culture. They can do it more sustainably. We've talked about that in the past in March's episode, but they won't, because sustainability, any part of it, is the antithesis of the techno-optimist. And the fossil fuel infrastructures already exist, and then they don't have to add questions, and then they don't have to have build permits, because that's all part of it. It is all part of a culture. And in creating this accelerationist run for computer power, they're undermining the permitting, which is fine, I guess, because the EPA just doesn't exist anymore. Ugh. For example, Musk's Colossus supercomputer in South Memphis, which is a heavily marginalized community. He just like trucked 46 unpermitted illegal methane gas turbines to power this like AI data center that's poisoning the air with formaldehyde. Formaldehyde. Because, you know, gerrymandering can just happen if it's not racially motivated, but it's politically motivated. But, you know, good luck voting that out. And because they're so damn scared of losing a foothold in the race to extinction, Anthropic, which was supposed to be a safe alternative to OpenAI, leased the whole damn thing. They leased the whole damn illegal data center. Y'all. I can't with this shit. Like, I know we just covered 30 years of tomfoolery, and there wasn't very much time or space for like nuance. I'm not the girl that's going to get into that. That's not what we're here for. But this is how we get here. It matters because this is how we get under social control. It's how we get a criminal, ultra capitalist in the US White House. And it's how we get billionaires going to political meetings instead of representatives. It's how the fight for sustainability gets written out of history. And it's how we're trained to focus on consumption and made to feel ashamed when we question the status quo. It's an intentional plan with promoting capitalism as the goal and ESG as the literal enemy. I'm letting it sink in. I've never felt smaller, but I've also never felt more informed. When you trace the line from 1995 to your social scroll this very morning or night or whatever time it is a day that you're reading this, you can see a terrifyingly clear picture. The technocratic autocracy isn't about just like cool new gadgets and better search results. It is a calculated, generation-spanning architecture built for complete human and resource dominance. That sounds wild, but it's true. They want us trapped inside of their digital panopticon, obsessing over engagement metrics, modifying our behavior, living inside virtual overlays so that we don't notice or care about their actions that are frying the physical planet to power the servers to give them more power. I mean, listen, the cat is out of the bag. We cannot unmine the silicon. We cannot delete the code, but we can absolutely refuse to behave like passive data points waiting to be optimized for their system. So here's how you can step out of this weird social control matrix and make a difference. Fight the supercomputer cartels. The race for AI power is happening at the local municipal level. Technocrats are counting on us staying silent while they rush data center construction. Look into your local zoning laws and city council meetings. Demand strict environmental moratoriums on data centers because the EPA is not going to do that. Support organizations like the NAACP and Earth Justice who are legally fighting back against tech conglomerates, rolling unpermitted methane gas turbines into marginalized communities. If they want to build the future, fine, but they don't get to poison our neighborhoods to do it. Starve the panopticon. I'm sorry, you gotta stop with the flame wars. But remember Foucault's lesson. The system only works if you internalize their judgment. So stop policing your thoughts, your opinions, and your sustainability stories. Please an algorithm that Mark Anderson explicitly built to suppress you. Furthermore, treat your digital use like real-world resource consumption. Every trivial AI chatbot query, every AI-generated image for a giggle uses physical gallons of water for server cooling and puffs of carbon. Be discerning with your queries and consider working with a company like Offset AI to help you understand the real physical impacts of AI searches to create. I actually do work with Offset AI and I think they're great. Choose dirt or like basketball or something. I don't know why I use basketball. I think because One Tree Hill is on Netflix right now. So anyway, sorry. This is long. Mark Andreessen wants you numb, hyper consuming, and plugged into this augmented reality overlay. Mark Zuckerberg wants you viewing the physical world through data mining Orion glasses, while Peter Thiel and Elon Musk get kickbacks every time you give more information to their machines. The ultimate act of rebellion here is to look away from the screen. Step into your backyard. Build a new pond. Fix your clothes. Visit a local farmer. Roll around in the freaking grass or something. Protect real, complex, messy atoms of your local ecosystem, because you are a human signal, not a line of code. Y'all, I know this series is not my typical sustainability update. I've just been doing this for so long, right? Like, I know the solutions are out there and that the transition to a more sustainable future is possible because I've spent years working with and interviewing the folks making it happen. And I need to know why it isn't happening. I need to know who is stopping it and how they're influencing society to keep us in this extraction age. This was a really big one. It was way bigger, actually, than I even expected it to be. And it feels like I'm off the rails, but I'm going to keep going. Because next time we're moving from these corporate server farms to the literal battlefield. I'm going to call out the industry that consumes more carbon than entire nations while staying totally off grid. Well, they're not off grid. They're consuming the grid. In part 3 of the Shadow Architect series, we're covering the carbon cost of conflict. Now take a deep breath. I don't know if that was for you or me. Whew. Okay. That's it for today. If no one told you lately, thank you so much for the work you're doing, especially if the work is on yourself. And I will see you next time. Bye.